Welcome to our Zonta Says Now African-European Intercontinental Think Tank. Please write in our chat where you are joining us from today. Our topic, the challenges of advocacy for gender-equal climate justice. How women and men can strengthen each other and stand side by side. My name is Pia Hultgreen, and I'm happy to introduce today's session with my colleagues and our fabulous guests. Our session will take us across continents, from rural Nigeria to the heart of Uganda, to hear from two outstanding leaders in climate and gender advocacy. Together, we'll explore how we can strengthen one another's voices, advocate from a place of love, courage, and commitment, and inspire lasting change. It is with pleasure to hand over it to Carol Theobald, who is leading our Zonta International Zonta Says Now working group. Please, Carol.
Thanks, Pia. Before we begin, I'd like to cover some housekeeping. Can you please use the chat line to ask questions and make comments? Use welcoming and inclusive language, ask short and succinct questions, and answer questions or make comments respectfully. Thanks very much. Our African-European journey today is technically led by me in Perth, Australia, and I'll be hosting this session and monitoring the chat line. Our hosting team joins us from 3 continents. Joan Kabayambi in Kampala, Uganda, is listening to us online today because she's en route between 2 places. So she sends her warm greetings as she listens in to us today. From Europe, we welcome Pia Hultgren from Ledingo in Sweden and Karen Langer from Berlin in Germany. And from Asia, we have Eric Alavia from Mumbai in India. Together with Zontans from around the world, we're all working on Zonta International's campaign for gender equal climate justice, called Zonta Says Now. Over to you, Eric.
Hello, everyone. Zonta International is a global human rights organization in 64 countries that builds a better world for women and girls. We say yes to gender equality, no to violence against women, and now to gender equal climate action. With Zonta Says Now, we seek climate justice so women and girls can prevent, prepare, or respond and recover from the impacts of climate change on the same basis as men. We do this by advocating from the heart and by taking gender equal climate action locally, nationally, and internationally. Our work is informed by Zonta International's Statement on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement, the first legally binding treaty that recognizes the empowerment of women and girls as a critical factor in achieving a sustainable future. Over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Eric. It's so good to see you all here. Very welcome, warm welcome as well from my side, as well to our fabulous guests. And yeah, it's so nice to see Resti here as well, and all a lot of familiar faces. And now I introduce the program of today. And as a professional meteorologist, Pia will now first take a closer look at the current state of climate change facing Africa, Europe, and our entire planet based on scientific data. After a first short poll, Carol will introduce Zonta Says Now, and I will briefly outline some facts and figures of the challenges around climate justice before we welcome our speakers. After our guest speakers' presentations, we will start the panel discussion and then open the forum so that everyone can participate via the chat line, or we would really love to see you as well in person by raising your hands. And then finally, Carol will give us a summary and close with a look to the future. Over to you, Pia.
Thank you, Karin. Yes, we'll start with the planet. How is the status of the planet? And as we begin with this little film, we invite you to reflect on the world around you. So just think, and we come back and we share this short video that reminds us of the recent state of global warming. Watch with an open mind and heart, and think about how these global shifts are also deeply personal. Please, Carol, put on the video.
Great.
Thank you, Carol. Yes, we have all seen, I think, around the world, the effects of global warming. And 2023, Africa was the fastest warming continent, and with a lot of heat waves and droughts as consequences, and all that social consequences that come with that. And also, of course, some floodings. And in 2024, Europe took over and is the place on Earth that heats up fastest. And especially the southeast of Europe and the southern parts are very affected with the heat waves. So the global race against climate catastrophes has begun. Over to you, Carol.
Okay, thanks very much, Pia. It was a really good video. Right, so we'd like to now hear from all of you. So we're going to start the first poll that you can see on the screen, hopefully. I'm going to launch the poll, and you can answer more than once, okay? So you can make more than one choice. Here it goes. End the poll and share the results. Now, can you see the results?
Yes.
Good.
Fabulous.
Yes.
Great, just wanted to make sure. So we have 60% of people have experienced flooding, and over half have experienced storms, the storms and the flooding. Half have experienced extreme heat, and a fifth have experienced drought and fires and smoke. So we're all experiencing something which is really interesting. So climate change is real, isn't it? So, so every of these events is a threat to gender equality. We've got a big problem, but we have solutions too. So this is why we have Zonta Says Now, which I'll show on this video. over to you, Karen.
Yes, the impacts of climate change are not distributed equally. Around the world, women are more likely to experience food insecurity, lose economic opportunities, face gender-based violence, and be excluded from leadership roles in recovery efforts. Climate justice needs gender equality, and gender equality needs all of us.
Thanks very much, Karen. I was just going to do the second poll, which we have here. And this one is around what the effects on women's rights concern you the most. So I'll just launch this poll and you can see what we have. Which effects on women's rights concern you the most? You can answer more than once. So increased gender-based violence, child marriage, reduced access to education, more poverty, hunger, more human trafficking and exploitation, displacement and loss of land rights, and fewer economic opportunities for women, or less access to sexual and reproductive health services, more exposure to climate-related health risks, increased food and water insecurity, increased unpaid care and domestic work, and exclusion from decision-making, which is related to disaster response, economics, politics, and climate. So there's lots to choose from there. I'll finish the poll there. And what are our results? So we have the increased gender-based violence. 84% of people are very concerned about that, which makes sense. Reduced access to education, over half of us are concerned about that, as well as increased hunger and poverty. More human trafficking and exploitation, that's nearly half. A third are concerned about land right loss and displacement. Over half are intrigued about the fewer economic opportunities. More than a third on the health aspects of the climate risks. Increased food and water security was over half of respondents were interested in that. Increased unpaid.
Carol, we can't see the results.
You can't see the results? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Let me do this. Let's see if that works.
Yes, that's
excellent. Thanks for telling me. I can't see the chat line for some reason. So, so can you have a look at the chat for me, Pia, and just keep an eye on it for me? And a third increased unpaid care and domestic work, and over half were concerned about the decision making. So we had quite a good range of issues there that people are concerned about. And there are so many areas that climate change worsens existing inequalities. And so thank you very, very much for sharing your views on that. Your insights highlight that climate justice is not an abstract issue. It's real and it impacts women's lives today. So I'll stop sharing that one and I'll hand over to Karen.
I think it's Pia now, which will introduce us.
Sorry, Pia.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I go on. So your insights highlight that climate justice is not just abstract issue, it's real and it impacts women's lives. We can also see, we have picture number 10, yes? We can also see the global gender gaps in figures. The Global Gender Gap Index has tracked progress on gender parity in 146 countries since 2006. It measures gender gaps in the economy, education, health and politics, and the world's longest running global benchmark. Iceland, Finland and Norway lead. Sweden ranks 5th, Germany 7th. Uganda dropped from 78th to 83rd, and Nigeria improved from 130th to 125th. However, since the pandemic, we have seen stagnation or setbacks, including Germany's political and business leadership. At the current pace, full gender equality will take 169 years in politics and 152 years in the economy. Can we really wait that long? Over to Karin.
Yes, Pia, that's a very good question. Can we wait that long? And here's the thing, experts show that it is possible to live sustainably and have balanced growth within planetary boundaries if the factor of gender equality is considered. This economic donut you see here was developed by Kate Raywell. The aim is to live on the green donut ring you see. Red lines in the center of the donut mean that there is more poverty and inequality and people are suffering. Red lines outside the donut mean we are living beyond the limits of nature and our planet is suffering. We can create and compare donuts for different countries to see how sustainable they are. Countries like Germany and Sweden are closer to achieving social goals such as gender equality, but we are overshooting the planet's limits. In Uganda and Nigeria, it's the opposite. Is that fair? The United Nations Pact for the Future calls for reform of the global financial architecture. If financial markets reward gender equal balance and sustainable growth, we would live on the green donut with no red lines. We would all live and prosper in a world that's safe, gender just, and sustainable. That's climate justice, and it's worth working for. What if women had equal opportunities? According to the World Bank's report, Women, Business and the Law 2024, global GDP could jump by over 20%. And according to last year's UN Gender Snapshot, the world could save $10 trillion a year. Yet only half of the women work, compared to nearly 3/4 of men. Studies show women in leadership drive stronger climate action, better adaptation of communities in terms of sustainable agriculture and disaster preparedness, and reinvest more into family well-being, which is key for resilience. We have solutions like the United Nations Pact for the Future, but real progress demands women and men acting together. And with this, over to Eric.
Thank you, Karen. Patriarchal masculinities are a major cause of the climate crisis. MenEngage made this clear in its powerful statement to last year's COP29 in Baku. The MenEngage Alliance is a global network of organizations and activists who engage men and boys in advancing gender equality and social justice. Their members challenge harmful masculinities and promote positive male engagement in everything from preventing gender-based violence to climate justice. And now, we are honored to welcome two powerful voices from the MenEngage Network, men who are actively reshaping the story of climate and gender justice. Live from Nigeria, we have Dr. Chris Ugwu. Dr. Chris is an executive director of the Society for the Improvement of Rural People and as a former West African regional focus point for the Global Environment Facility NGO network, as well as an experienced climate activist. Over to you, Dr. Chris.
Yep.
Thank you very much for projecting my presentation.
Yes, we've got your slides on the screen.
Yes. Climate change, its impact and adaptation measures, a gendered perspective project implementation with support from New Map. New Map is Nigeria Erosion and Watershed Management Project. It's a World Bank supported project in 2 communities of Abo and Akamamankwo, all in Udi local government area of Enugu State. Next slide. By way of introduction, for many years, the impacts of climate change in the form of erosion, landslides, and general land degradation has threatened lives and property in southeastern part of Nigeria, where Abo and Akamamankwo are located. They are all in Enugu State. Activities such as deforestation, the burning of fossil fuel, indiscriminate excavation of soil for foundation filling and sand, for brick making, plastering and mining has exacerbated the impact of climate change in southeastern part of Nigeria, and more particularly in Enugu State. The gender perspective is important because climate change affects men and women differently. The distribution of gender roles and the importance of gender inequalities are such that women are more vulnerable to the impact of climate change than their male counterparts. The coordinates of Abo and Akamamankwo are displayed in that. You can just look at it. Next slide. This is the map of the local government area, showing the various communities in the local government area, including Abo and Ngwo. Next slide. Primary environmental concerns of the inhabitants of Abo and Amankwo, as shown by our survey in 2022, prior to project implementation in 2023-2024. Landslides is one of the first primary environmental concern in the community under reference. Landslides are the major impact of climate change in both Abo and Ngwo communities. The landslides due to excessive torrential rainfall, particularly the one we had in 2020-2021, destroyed arable lands and crops, shelter, both animal and humans, roads, and filled streams with sand, making them inaccessible. Another primary concern is that of tornadoes. Akamamankwo has the specific problem of tornadoes as the major impact of climate change in the area. Tornadoes destroy property, render affected inhabitants homeless, and claim lives. After the natural disaster of May 27, 2008, many Akamamankwo inhabitants became refugees in neighboring communities of Abo and Okana communities. Livestock, economic trees, electric poles were all destroyed by tornadoes during this period, thus depriving the inhabitants, especially women, of their means of livelihood. Next slide. There's also the issue of erosion. Heavy and destructive rainfall, another impact of climate change effect in the 2 communities, but they vary in devastating proportions. Rainfall carry away the soil damaged by the agents of environmental denudation, thus destroying farmlands, crops, and habitation. Another challenge is the issue of water scarcity. The drying up of streams through excessive heat contributed to the water scarcity as well as deterioration of water qualities in the 2 communities under reference. Corollaries of water scarcity, namely water husbandry. You might ask yourself, what's is water husbandry. Water husbandry is just storing water in containers for future use in anticipation of scarcity. But the challenge is that it becomes a breeding site for mosquitoes, infectious diseases such as typhoid, cholera, dysentery, which are always in increase in these communities. A new development by way of impact is rural-urban migration. The mass movement out of the two communities already deteriorated by the impacts of climate change is the popular gender response among the men of the communities, while the women stay back to salvage the situation. In explaining this phenomenon, CIDA, Canadian International Development Agency, in 2002, reported that male immigration happens as a result of shortage of resources, generating increased workload for women. Next slide. Next slide.
There. Mm-hmm.
Gender inequality is the major key driver of lack of women inclusion in climate mitigation and adaptation measures in the two communities of intervention. Women do not have the same rights as men. In fact, in 1999, Nigerian Constitution has amended Section 29(4)(b), specifies as follows: any woman who is married shall be deemed to be of full age. This statute encourages early marriage, which is one of the major challenges we have in this part of Nigeria. Women have little or no decision-making powers. In these two communities, the number of children a woman would have is often determined by the sex of the children she already had. For instance, if you already has 3 girls, custom require her to keep producing children until a male child is born. And that brings about overpopulation and sometimes lack of care of those that are already born. I mean, it's all about patriarchal considerations because until a woman has a male child, the female she already had does not really mean much to the people. Women do not own land. This is another gender inequality consideration we need to look at. I mean, it's only the male children that have land, or male boys that have. Women, in spite of their contribution to the economy of the family, do not own land. And this is another challenge we have. Then there is the issue of women are deprived of education. In the event of poverty, you discover that women are not given preference. The family would want to make sure that the male children go to school and then begin to prepare the girls for marriage. So these are inequalities that are very germane in our environment. Climate change activities implemented by women with support of male champions. And that is where we come in as MenEngage people. We train young boys in the communities to become champions in their own right, to support activities that are intended to reduce issues of gender inequality, particularly around climate change actions. There's the rainwater catchment system. You know, males, our champions try to help the women along a flowing drainage landscape to dig a hole sufficiently big enough to make sure that it slows down the flow of these flood waters and then catch them, as it were, from generating more challenges downstream. And there is also the fencing, using trees as fencing when a child is born. The use of the domesticated rainforest trees to commemorate the birth of a child, male or female. There is the Ivinga Wombolu. In our local parlance, it's called Ugiri. When a child is born, we are beginning to advocate that instead of not acknowledging that a child is born in the family, that the particularly girls, when they are born, nothing is done to celebrate them or commemorate their birth. It's done for males. But our campaign is to make sure that the same commemoration of the birth of a child, female or male, is celebrated using rainforest trees, like the one I've just mentioned. The third thing we are doing is to tree planting clubs that are being formed in these communities by women, youth, and children. Popular trees that are planted are ora is a green leafy vegetable used for cooking soup. And then there is also the ube. Ube is another pear, but it's a local pear. It's not the pear as you know it. There is ogbono. There is African breadfruit, okwa. And of course, bamboo trees. I've already talked about the issue of catchment pits. Then there's we're also encouraging to implement fencing farms with Jatropha coccus. This is a good source of biofuel with high medicinal value, useful in dye and wax production for industries. Seed cake utilization for soil fertility. The plant is also good for as an income earner for women and serves as a carbon sink. The key achievements we were able to record, modest as they are. Next slide, please. That's right. We've been able to train 500 women and girls from each of the communities of Aba and Ugwu on climate resilient agriculture, renewable energy, and disaster risk reduction. Another modest achievement is community engagement, because we were able to get the community to take ownership of this process and the project. We conducted 3 community awareness sessions, each in the 2 communities of project intervention on gender equality and climate change. And then 6,000 indirect beneficiaries, because as we are showing what we are doing in various social media platforms, people are beginning to get sensitized in terms of climate change mitigation and adaptation projects. Then, of course, we also about policy, because policy is very, very germane if you must record any change at all. And so we collaborated with the local government area to integrate gender-sensitive climate policies and plans into their environmental protection and health policy. But does that mean that we don't have challenges? We recorded a lot of challenges. Next. One is the issue of limited. Our funding from new map was a challenge. I mean, we didn't dig deep into the implementation process because of limited resources. Of course, again, another challenge is the issue of cultural barriers. You see, the traditional gender roles and stereotypes required careful and consideration and community engagement. I mean, people still believe that females are not as important as males. So there's this patriarchal thought, which is still very, very endemic as it were in this part of the world. So these are challenges. And then the issue of sustainability. You know, ensuring project sustainability required ongoing support and capacity building. By way of impact and outcomes. Next slide. Oh, very good. Thank you. Increased knowledge. Women and girls in the 2 communities demonstrated improved knowledge and skills on climate resilient practices. And of course, there is the issue of empowerment. Women from the 2 communities became more confident and empowered to participate in decision-making processes. And then more importantly, there's the issue of community resilience. The 2 communities showed increased resilience by 50% compared to the baseline situation of 8 to 10% to climate-related stressors. And when we talk about stressors, we've identified a number of them: water scarcity, rural-urban migration, erosion, tornadoes, and all that. So these are challenges. Just by way of photo documentation, could you share the That's right. These are Mrs. Philomena introducing herself during the ongoing verification. You see, because to start the project, we needed to do some verification of challenges they are having in their communities. For us, the fact of bringing women to be part of the people that will also share with us what their challenges are in the community, for us, it's an empowerment on the part of females, because hitherto they're not allowed in this kind of intervention to be part of discussions and all that. Again, we are seeing Mrs. Christiana, pointing to over her collapsed fence at the back of her house. I mean, that shows you the enormity of the rainfall that we record in this part of the communities. Again, you can see massive erosion site, but a little of work is currently going on in terms of building a drainage system. But that's not sufficiently enough to be able to contain the massive erosion that is taking place in these communities. Well, by way of just to show the billboard of the project intervention, I mean, it's we do these things to create awareness, to project what's happening in these areas. I want to thank you for your kind listening. I know I'm available for questions and answers. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you, Dr. Cruz, for that illuminating presentation. You have given us plenty to talk about.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
so true.
Going to do, we just have a couple of comments in the chat line, Dr. Chris, that I'll just quickly go through here. Yes, we had someone requested the video link, so that's been shared in the chat line. Karen, somebody called Karen Twetman had to leave, that's fine. Resty says she reinforces that climate change disproportionately affects women and girls, and including them in climate-related actions is imperative. Thank you, Dr. Chris, she says, which is great. Catherine Lackner says, thank you, Dr. Chris. And Mari from the Philippines says, thank you, Dr. Chris, such an informative presentation. I think most of us have been quite impressed because you are really on the front lines of climate change and the differences for women and girls. So now we've got the chat line up to date, we'll go back to our guest speaker.
Now I'd like to present our second speaker from Uganda. We have Mr. Kayinga Muddu, Yisito. Kayinga is the network coordinator for the Community Transformation Foundation Network and the African Regional Representative on the MenEngage Global Environment and Climate Justice Working Group. He also serves as the Uganda country representative for Stop Ecocide International. Please take the floor, Kayinga. It's over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm looking at the time given to me, so I know there would be chance for more other questions. So this is the intervention that we are doing in Uganda. We called it strengthening the coordination mechanism and scaling up the engagement of men and boys in gender equality and climate justice here in Uganda. You can go to the next slide. That is our program that we are doing. The next slide, I will take you through the objectives of this intervention. One is to promote and engage boys and men to recognize girls and women's rights and the importance of eradicating harmful societal practices and the norms and the sexual gender-based violence. That is our first objective. Second objective is to strengthen and improve the functionality of COTFON. COTFON is a network of 78 organizations, majority women-led organizations and groups. and the mainstream work on engaging boys and men for gender equality. As you could see the photo on the right, men in the climate crisis. So we feel to be putting this on in face of all this. You can go to the next slide. I want to take you through some of the actions that we have been able to organize on the ground. I'm worried. I don't know if you are you able to read?
Yep.
Are you able to read the words?
Yes. Mapping exercise. Yes.
Okay. Okay, fine. So the first activity was mapping to identify programs, activities, interventions for engaging boys and men work among the network members. So within the network of we had to look out for those that align it to the gender and climate justice work through engaging men and boys. The second intervention was organize capacity assessment to the network members to understand the extent to which they integrate gender transformative and human rights-based approaches in their work. So we carried out that assessment from the network, our network at the ground. The third intervention was to identify and train 216 boys and men champions from member organizations on gender equality, including their key roles to promote a gender inclusive environment. That was the next action. Then another action we have been able to do in 2 years was training of community champions. This includes community opinion leaders, legislators, religious and cultural leaders, teachers, healthcare providers, council leaders, among others, on gender transformative approach, emphasizing the roles they have to play to ensure and maintain gender transformative communities. Crisis and masculinities material developed by MAN. MAN is our is a MenEngage secretariat in Europe, based in Sweden. So we have that manual that is very useful, and we conducted a training in Uganda, and now we have champions that are promoting this material, which talks specifically on men, climate crisis, and masculinities. We are able to also share with all those interested in this kind of work. Then additionally, we have been conducting bi-monthly review meetings, which includes co-creation, network-wide gatherings for trainers or facilitators on main climate crisis and masculinities. The team we trained is a team of 20 people. So we now have monthly engagements to ensure, because they are already doing the noble work in their communities as male champions. Then this is an engagement of strategic actors in the European Union on climate justice. So this is through our Gender and Climate Justice Forum that we hosted in Brussels last year. And we had the opportunity to also engage at the European Parliament to share our focus on engaging men and boys for gender climate action in Uganda and across the world through the MenEngage network. Next slide, that's slide number 5.
Yes.
Yes, slide number 5. Good. Document and disseminate testimonials, stock voices, and change stories for positive attitudes change of men and boys in promoting and sustaining a gender inclusive society, including upholding women and girls' rights. And another activity is intergeneration, and those voices that were documented, they are available for those who would want to read through them. Intergenerational dialogue on gender and climate justice and edutainment with community leaders, parents, youth. This activity engages these key stakeholders on gender transformative approaches, emphasizing the role each have to play to ensure and maintain gender transformative communities and tackle the disappropriate effects of climate change and environmental degradation on lives of women, girls, and communities in Uganda. So those are the activities. So You go to the next slide.
Yep.
Slide 7. Slide 6. Yeah, 6.
The slide we
question, Kayinga.
is from ego to eco.
Yes, from patriarchy to partnership.
That is my thought that I'm sharing. Go to the next slide. I hope this is for all of us what we want to shift. So I want to show you some of the actions, photographic actions. Point 7. Slide 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. Slide number 7. Yeah. So there you could see some of the intervention that we're doing, planting. Here you can see our reports online, gender, Uganda, Sweden, Forge Alliance, gender inclusive climate initiatives. All this can be found on our website. So these are some of the intervention in pictures. Then I think when you go to number 8, this is the thing that we are doing, like as you do now as MenEngage Global Climate Justice Working Group. So also we have our monthly engagements that we did for over 2 years, from 2021 until last year, when we are able to meet for the first time in 2 years, when we hold the virtual online engagement. And that's when we had the Brussels Summit to come together to strategize for the next phase of action. And lastly, because I want to remain to the time given to me on this presentation, I thank you so much. That is the person that has been talking to you. That is my email, telephone, and the website of the organization, Kayinga Muddu. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Kayinga. I'll stop the share.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen.
Oh, great.
Thank you,
Yes,
Dr. Chris. Your powerful presentations are a perfect bridge to our panel discussion. Before we open up the discussion to explore how we can join together to advocate from the heart, we would like to ask Dr. Chris and Kayinga a few questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so from your experience, probably Chris can start. Could you tell us what the biggest challenges are to advocating for gender equal climate justice at a local and especially at a rural level, like you experienced it? Chris, would you like to start?
Okay. The challenges we have always encountered in trying to build true partnership between women and men in climate action revolves around 4 critical challenges. One is the issue of shared understanding. You know, we have come to realize that the basic understanding around issues of men and women in climate action is the fact that most people do not understand that issues around climate change affects women and men differently, and that gender equality is essential for any effective climate action. Another challenge we also experience in our working in rural communities is the fact that most people have not come to understand fully the critical role women play in climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resilience building. Another challenge is that people have not come to realize that to be able to effect real climate action, there's a need for collaboration, inclusive decision-making process is very inevitable for us to achieve success in this area. Which is why in our advocacy work, we try to ensure that women and men have equal opportunities to participate in decision-making processes related to climate change. And more importantly, we try to empower women in women's leadership around issues of climate change, particularly mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. We work hard to make sure that women becomes a real catalyst for change by empowering them with appropriate knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Another challenge we have is the issue of mutual respect and support. You know, in this part of the world where patriarchy is very, very crucial for most people, they don't appreciate the fact that there's the need to value diverse perspectives. And like in the community we are working on or worked on, we find that women are now beginning to take their primary position because in the final analysis, they have more knowledge about indigenous trees and how they can prevent erosion and how they can be a source of income for the average women. In the chat box, somebody was asking me, when men leave the communities because of climate challenges, do they go with their families? The answer is no, they don't. They just go alone and then leave women behind to begin to suffer the challenges and the risks involved in flooding, risks involved in tornadoes, risks involved in erosion. There is the need for conscientization and advocacy around this area. And then another challenge we also is the issue of gender-based power imbalance. You know, I did mention that women don't own lands, they don't own properties in terms of ability to, you know, cultivate the type of trees that will help them. So these are challenges, but I thank God we're making very, very critical and serious inroad into changing the mindset of both the policymakers and our community heads and traditional rulers, including religious rulers, because they would always give you, for the Christian, they will say women are not supposed to talk in a congregation. For the Muslims, they will say in fact, even in their mosque, they create different rooms. The women stay in different place, men stay different place. So these are the jinx we are working hard to begin to, because in some of the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad, that was not the original thought. These are some of the new developments, as it were, that are beginning to create problems in our work to make sure that there's gender balance, especially on issues around climate change action. So another challenge is that at the state level, the government level, policies don't seem to promote gender-sensitive issues. I've just talked to you about the issue of Article 24B, where they are saying that anybody married is assumed to be a mature person. But in reality, that is not true. If you marry a girl of 12 years, 13 years, and just because you have married her, she suddenly has become transited from being a child to being a woman. It's not true. It's not true at all. And all these things have their implications in terms of the self-esteem of the young girl to be able to take decisions that affect her life. So essentially, these are the few challenges we have encountered in our work at the community level.
Thank you, Dr. Chris. Kayinga, what have you experienced with challenges?
Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you, Doctor, for your input onto this topic. Regarding the challenges to advocating for gender equal climate justice in rural communities, one is limited access to educational resources. Women in the community group
Can you move a bit closer to the microphone because it's not very loud. Thank you.
Are you hearing me now?
A bit better, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I was saying that I'm letting you know some of the challenges that we have gone through in doing all this work on the ground. One, the biggest challenge to advocate for gender equal climate justice in rural communities is limited access to education and resources. Women and marginalized groups often have less access to education resources, which hinders their ability to participate in climate action and decision-making processes. The challenge number 2 is looking at cultural barriers. Traditional gender roles limit women's involvement in environmental issues, as they may not have been seen as the key stakeholders in community decisions. Then there is also lack of representation. Women often have representation in leadership positions within a community and political structures, reducing their influence on discussions regarding climate policies. Then we also have economic dependence. In rural areas, women rely on men for financial support, which can deter them from taking active roles in climate advocacy. Then we also have resistance to change. Efforts to advocate for gender equality face resistance from conservative elements within communities that prefer to maintain traditional social structures. So that's what I think I am happy to compliment on this question. I thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I see some further questions in the chat, and they say that they love the eco patriarchy to purge. That was Marie de los Santos who was commenting that, and Susan Lees asked, what age are the boys and men in the program? Probably that can be first. Kayinga, would you explain that in your program, and then Dr. Chris? What age are the boys and men?
Well, for our activities is called MenEngage, and like I said, MenEngage is men and boys. So for the boys, we recruit as low an age as 20 to 25. Then the men, 30 and above, anybody who is prepared and who is willing, part of the process we're undergoing, are allowed to be part of what we're doing. So we don't really place too much emphasis on age as much as your commitment and passion to be part of the ultimate success story of what you're undertaking.
So you spoke as well from that how hard it's sometimes because of certain views on of masculinity and patriarchy, which affect as well your work. So that's really hard to overcome this. You told as well about the laws in Nigeria, and we see that I think also in Uganda. There are some pictures of masculinities I think we are all a little bit familiar with. What strategies do you have or have you found effective in engaging boys and men to support gender equality in climate advocacy? Kayinga, could you start?
I beg your pardon?
What strategy? The question is, what strategies do you have found effective in engaging boys and men to support gender equality in climate advocacy?
Okay. I think one of the strategy is the partnership with the women organizations, local government structures, local leaders, and cultural leaders. So for us, that has helped us much to ensure that our work of engaging men and boys becomes very easy. The partnership with women organizations in the community, women groups, local government councils, local leaders, political leaders, and cultural leaders. Because with yours, we are talking about dismantling a patriarchy. So, and the patriarchy is embedded within the community structures. So those are the key stakeholders that we partner with to find our work moving on very well. And later on, like as we are working with the children, we also collaborate with schools where we get, like we do the selection of younger people. And like my colleague was saying, in our programming, we see that the engagement of boys can start as early as 8 years and above, because like when going to schools, replanting, find that all those boys at that age, you start to encourage them and have to move in the same direction. I think that's what I have to add to that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Carol, you also had a question. Can you raise this? It's interesting.
But it's all around, is it difficult to recruit men and boys as champions? Do you have to do a lot of one-on-one conversations beforehand, or do you find them to be very receptive?
Yeah, recruitment of boys and men in the championship process is an amalgam of focus group discussions and one-on-one. They are mutually complementary because within any community, you can find people who are leaders, not necessarily because of climate change, but people who voice matter a great deal within the community for one reason or the other. So we try to permeate the community, identify these leaders, and then work towards making them buy into what we are looking to achieve. And as soon as they buy into it, all those their peers will begin to be part of it, begin to associate with the success story of such an endeavor. And so our recruitment is an amalgam of one-on-one and then focus group discussion and sometimes community outreach. So it's not one strike jacket kind of approach. We marry many approaches. Our interest here is the final analysis to get people who have the appropriate voice and who can create change. Because we are working in an environment that is purely patriarchal and a lot of negative masculinity so it's a process. It takes a lot of endurance and a lot of patience and to make them change their original perceptions and mindset. But the important thing is that it's beginning to work. Since we started, it's beginning to work. We're now getting to see that people find it difficult, to marry any girl that is not caught. But today, with this kind of thing we have been doing, we are beginning to see young men who are now, proud to identify with marrying and uncoupling. And it's beginning to be the intent now in the communities. For us, we keep thanking God for that. We don't come with name or shame approach, not at all. We appreciate their custom, we appreciate their but then we confront them with hard realities of life, and sometimes even build around issues of even the scriptures, because some of them will say it's a religious thing. I say no, it's not a religious thing. Give me one verse of the scripture that encourages this kind of problem, and oftentimes they don't find it. And so when you now confront them with the hard realities and the truth of what we're talking about, some of them become remorseful and want to be part of what we're doing. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Kayinga,
Thank you.
have you experienced have you had any difficulties recruiting men and boys? And have you personally experienced any pushback from other men for advancing and supporting gender equality?
Thank you very much for this question. As we started this kind of work,
You've gone quiet
very
again.
Important.
That's good. Yeah.
Yes, I'm saying that I have not got resistance on the kind of work. Reason being that as a gender advocate, I started this engagement of men and boys from the personal reflection. And it becomes very easy for me as a public figure in the community, what I do with the community, which interests other men and boys. So my intervention into engaging men and boys will not find any resistance, because in engaging men and boys, this situation has to start with the actor. You have to walk the talk. And not be talking that I'm promoting engaging men.
You're going quiet again. Kayinga, can you put your go to near the microphone again?
About that, I was saying that my exemplary work on gender and climate justice is my work to engage with men and boys without any resistance. And to me, I feel this is what all advocates for same should be emulating, to walk the talk. When you walk the talk, you don't get resistance, because local people, communities want to rely on what you are and what you do before you tell them what they should do. So no resistance, and using local strategies or structures, it really helps to ensure that we move at the same page. Thank you.
Good. So you're role modeling the whole time, showing what can be done. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Did we have any more questions from the audience just before we move on? Anyone have if you have a question, just put it in the chat line. That would be great. Dr. Chris, you referred earlier in your presentation that you had many refugees after the landslides and tornadoes. In 2008, you had many refugees that went to different parts of the country. Did they ever get to go back to their homes?
Yes, they've gone back to their homes now. They've already gone back to their homes, yes. But you see, at the base of some of this is issues of poverty, and the poverty of both the mind and physical poverty. So what we're also trying to combine issues of climate change, adaptation and mitigation action is also to find how we can also put some livelihood processes, because in some of these communities, women are saddled with challenges of even how to feed their children and all that. So beyond just trying to stop some of these stressors by way of erosion control and all that, we are also exploring the possibility of seeing how issues of addressing challenges of climate with self-improvement, I mean, livelihood improvement for the women. Because like I said, whenever there's a challenge, you see the men running to the townships and then leaving the women to bear the brunt of the challenges of climate action. So they've all gone back, but the challenge of ensuring that they also have some livelihood structures that will be able to sustain them and make them, independent financially, as it were. Thank you very much, Carol.
Kayinga and Chris, did you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make?
Sorry?
Did you have any extra comments that you'd like to make, say around what does a a partnership look like between your women and men in climate action? What does it, I mean, how could we work with you? How could Zonta Says Now help you? Kayinga, any ideas?
Okay. I thank you very much. I also think before I respond to that, I have to bring to your attention among the biggest challenges that are not rooted from the communities, but these are patriarchal industrial behavior, breadwinner masculinities. The term comes from Martin Ruterman and Paul Mure from the Technical University of Sweden, acted out by European French oil company Total Energies, who is building the East African crude oil pipeline in Uganda and Tanzania, right through our communities. The industrial breadwinner masculinities view nature and marginalized humans, women and girls, as infinite resources for exploitation, for own gain. And they deny the climate, they marginalize the humans, and they deny the climate crisis. The biggest challenges we face in our work for gender justice, climate work, is that we are harassed by the police, who has orders from the men in power in our country, and the French company Total Energies that is from Europe. So you can see that from all this, for us, our role has been to support and advocate for voices and rights of the local affected people in local courts, regional and then global level, like at EU. But as a Zonta, I think our work has been on a small scale. We can do more. If we can scale up our intervention to reach more communities and reach more spaces. Right now, if the challenges that we are seeing on the ground can be taken in different forums, like maybe now we have been engaging with Europe on men and climate crisis, then we can see other spaces where Zonta has more focus. We need to resource this kind of work because this is transformational change. We're talking about system change. So this should not be seen as project-based work. Gender and climate justice work should be seen as transformational work that we have to day and day. So this way we can collaborate with like-minded actors, and we can share our experiences and best practices for replication into other communities and for amplifying into other spaces. I would be happy to share with you some of the stories of change that we have documented over 2 years. And you can see how the changing behaviors of men and boys now used to inspire action from others. We look forward to any possible partnership with Zonta into the work we do and within the networks where we have responsibility, like MenEngage Alliance, MenEngage Africa, MenEngage Uganda, Cotton, from local, regional to global levels for impact. I thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. I have also a last question, or not question, but I think that both of you, Dr. Chris and also Kayinga, showed us very well that it is acting on different levels. It's on the local level, community level, with role models and with acting with the people. And it's as well on the international level, of course. And we are structured a little bit similar. I mean, Zonta is globally acting, and we are also focusing on local action, but we also have to really transform, as Kayinga said, to transform the behaviors and to really stick to things like the Pact for the Future and look at what is happening, for instance, with the oil companies in Nigeria, which is counterproductive and really toxic to, and so I think that's, so we have similar ways, and we should come together, and that's, for instance, that we should look for having statements together, something like that, and to be loud on that, so that's a conclusion from my side. Thank you so much for this, impressive lectures.
Thank you.
Further, it was a fruitful discussion. Thank you for your valuable suggestions and insights, Dr. Chris and Kayinga. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll just move on with, I just want to share this message from Antonio Guterres. He really shows where the challenge we're facing today.
Women's rights are under siege. The poison of patriarchy is back, and is back with a vengeance, slamming the brakes on action, tearing up progress, and mutating into new and dangerous forms. But there is an antidote, and that antidote is action. Now is the time for those of us who care about equality for women and girls to stand up and to speak out. Now is the time for the world to accelerate progress and deliver on the promise of Beijing.
I think that sums it up beautifully at the moment, and it's a good opportunity for us to work, men and women, together, side by side, because the challenge we face together is enormous. Well, our key takeaways today, we've seen how man-made global warming is accelerating, and the race against climate catastrophe is on. Climate justice needs gender justice, and gender justice needs all of us. How do we win over boys and men for gender equal climate justice? We need a partnership between women and men. It isn't just a gift, it's a necessity. We need to bring boys and men on board. We must meet them where they are, peer to peer, and let them experience the power of true partnership. With courage, compassion, and persistence, we can change lives, systems, and mindsets. Every conversation matters. When we walk side by side, we are unstoppable. So let's not wait, let's act together, starting today. So if you'd like to find out more about Zonta or would like to get in contact, please visit our website or email us at the address above. And save the date for our next think tank, which will be on the 13th of July, where we're looking at women's rights on the climate frontline with climate justice in Asia and the Pacific. I want to thank all of you today for sharing your time, and well, especially to Dr. Chris and to Kayinga for sharing your time and preparing presentations today. And I'm taking off the screen share so we can all see each other. And if you put your screens on for a little while, we can all just see each other and say cheerio for now. So thank you all for joining today. It's been an absolute pleasure to learn more about people, what's happening in Africa in particular, when we're trying to get men and women working to face those challenges that we face today. So thank you all for your time, and keep breathing, keep smiling, and have fun. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the next think tank. Thank you.